King Kong's fury unleashed against Skull Island poachers. For most, this island was a legend, a place whispered about in ports and spaceports alike. But for King Kong, it was home, a kingdom where he reigned supreme. Kong moved silently through the thick foliage, his massive frame almost invisible among the trees. Despite his enormous size, he had learned how to step carefully to avoid scaring the smaller creatures that shared the island. Birds perched on his broad shoulders, and monkeys ran alongside him as if he were one of them. To outsiders, he was a monster. But here he was a guardian. From the other side of the island, the sound of engines cut through the morning calm. Hovercrafts, gleaming under the sun, skimmed over the rocky coast. Humans, many armed with high-tech equipment, emerged from the craft. They were poachers, a ruthless group who called themselves the Harvesters. Their goal was simple: capture the rare and dangerous creatures of Skull Island and sell them to the highest bidder. Among them was Dr. Lena Vale, a wildlife biologist who had come with a legal permit to study the island's creatures. She was young but smart, with a fierce determination that matched her love for animals. Her assistant, Marco, followed closely, nervous about the heavily armed poachers surrounding them. Lena had suspected the poachers might be here, but she had no idea how dangerous they really were. "Stay close, Marco," Lena whispered. "If they see us as a threat, it could get ugly fast." The poachers did not notice Lena and Marco as they moved deeper into the jungle. They were focused on their target, King Kong. They carried nets reinforced with energy restraints, tranquilizer guns designed to knock out creatures larger than a truck, and cages that could hold Kong's smaller companions. Kong paused on a ridge, scanning the forest below. He sensed something was wrong. There was a smell in the air, something foreign. The poachers were clever but not clever enough. His eyes, dark and intelligent, narrowed. This was an invasion. His jungle, his creatures were in danger. A loud crash echoed through the trees. A net had fallen from a branch, and a poacher's drone whirred too close to Kong's territory. The sound made the smaller animals scatter. Birds flew into the sky and monkeys shrieked. Kong's roar followed shortly after, deep and terrifying, a sound that shook the ground. The poachers looked up and froze. A shadow moved among the trees, a massive figure larger than any human could imagine. Kong's face was set in a grim, focused expression. He did not charge, not yet. He wanted them to understand this was his home and they were trespassers. Lena watched from behind a thicket, her heart pounding. She had heard the stories about Kong, but seeing him in person was different. The power radiating from him was more than physical strength. There was intelligence, a presence that commanded respect. And yet there was also something gentle, almost noble, in the way he stood protectively over the smaller animals. "We need to warn them," Marco whispered, trembling. "They don't know he's huge." "They need to see reason," Lena said softly, her eyes never leaving Kong. "Maybe we can stop them before someone gets hurt." But the poachers did not see reason. One of them, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, laughed as he aimed a drone camera toward Kong. "Perfect. Let's get him on film before we bring him down. He's going to fetch a fortune." Kong's eyes followed the man and his chest rose as he let out a low, warning growl. It was a sound of intelligence and calculation. He was not just angry, he was preparing. The poachers moved closer. They carried a massive net, reinforced with the latest energy barriers. One of them had a tranquilizer gun aimed at the trees, ready to shoot if Kong approached. Lena's stomach twisted. They were insane. Kong was not just any animal, they were dealing with a force of nature. Suddenly, chaos erupted. A baby Kong, smaller than the Guardian but still the size of a large truck, wandered into a clearing. Its playful curiosity brought it closer to the poachers. The humans froze, their greed blinding them to danger. With a swift move, the poachers fired the energy net. It shot through the air, trapping the baby Kong instantly. The little one struggled, its high-pitched cries echoing through the jungle. Kong's roar followed. It was unlike anything Lena had ever heard, louder than thunder, shaking the ground beneath her feet. The trees trembled and even the poachers faltered. Kong leapt from the ridge, moving faster than anything his size should allow. Branches snapped beneath his weight and boulders shifted as he charged toward the clearing. Lena and Marco ran, hiding behind rocks and trees, hearts pounding. "We have to stop this," Lena said. "We can't let them hurt him or the baby." Kong reached the clearing. His hands were massive, his eyes glowing with fury. He crushed the net effortlessly, freeing the baby. The poachers scattered, firing their guns wildly, but Kong was too fast. One by one, their equipment fell. Hovercrafts flipped in the mud, drones crashed into trees, and cages were smashed into pieces. Lena and Marco ran toward the baby, careful not to get too close to Kong's wrath. The small Kong wrapped itself around Lena's arm, shaking but unharmed. Lena whispered to it, her voice calm and soothing. Kong watched, his expression softening ever so slightly. It was as if he understood that these humans were different. "This way," Lena said to Marco, pointing toward a safe area in the jungle. "We have to get out of the open." The poachers regrouped, angry and desperate. Their leader barked orders, but the fear in his voice was obvious. Kong stood tall, roaring again, sending shockwaves that knocked several poachers off their feet. He was both protector and avenger. Lena noticed something as she looked at him. Despite his fury, Kong was not blindly violent. He targeted only the poachers, leaving the smaller creatures alone. It was a combination of intelligence, instinct, and justice. She realized then that Kong was not a monster. He was a king defending his people and his land. "Marco," she whispered, "we need to help him. If we can guide him, maybe we can stop them completely without anyone else getting hurt." Marco nodded, eyes wide. "But how? He's huge and angry." "You don't have to touch him," Lena said. "Just help him. Distract the poachers, use the terrain. We can be his allies." As they worked to move to higher ground, Lena's mind raced. The jungle offered many advantages: cliffs, rivers, thick foliage. If they could use these to their advantage, they could protect Kong and the baby. But it would be dangerous. One wrong step and the humans or the creatures could die. Meanwhile, the poachers prepared a final plan. Using a combination of energy nets and tranquilizers, they aimed to capture Kong himself. They had studied him for weeks, calculating every move. But they had underestimated one thing: Kong's fury, and now Lena and Marco's courage. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the jungle. The air was thick with tension, and every creature seemed to hold its breath. Kong crouched near a cliff edge, muscles coiled like springs, ready to strike. The poachers advanced, their voices loud, their guns ready. And then it happened. Kong charged. The ground shook with each step. Trees snapped like twigs. Hovercrafts flipped, and nets were shredded before they even reached him. His roar echoed like an alarm across the island, warning every creature that danger had arrived, and justice would follow. Lena and Marco worked quickly, leading the baby Kong to a safer area, using fallen trees and rocks as cover. They knew this was just the beginning. Kong's fury was only growing, and the poachers would not give up easily. But one thing was certain: Skull Island had a protector. And the poachers were about to learn that some forces of nature were beyond human control. The jungle fell into a tense silence after the initial chaos. Kong stood over the poachers, a mountain of power and wrath. Birds returned to the trees, monkeys cautiously crept back into the branches, and even the ocean seemed to hold its breath. Lena and Marco looked at Kong in awe, realizing that they were witnessing something extraordinary. An intelligent, powerful creature fighting not just for survival, but for justice. Lena whispered to Marco, her voice trembling with excitement and fear, "If we can survive today, maybe we can make them see. Maybe we can help Kong protect this place forever." Kong's eyes met hers briefly, almost as if he understood. And then, with one final, earth-shaking roar, he disappeared into the jungle with the baby, leaving the stunned poachers scattered and terrified. The battle for Skull Island had begun. The jungle was alive with tension. Every bird, every rustling vine seemed to sense the storm coming. King Kong moved with purpose, his massive feet leaving deep impressions in the soft, wet earth. The baby Kong clung to him, trembling but unharmed. Kong's dark eyes burned with fury. The poachers had dared to capture one of his own, and now they would face the full force of his wrath. From a hidden ridge, Lena and Marco watched as Kong tore through the jungle. Lena's mind raced. "We have to help him," she whispered. "We can't let them escape. But we also can't let anyone die, especially not the poachers, unless they attack first." Marco swallowed hard. "You really think he'll listen to us?" "He's not listening to words," Lena said, her eyes narrowing. "He's listening to actions. We act carefully, he follows. We guide him." The poachers, meanwhile, were scrambling. Their equipment had suffered badly in Kong's first attack. Hovercrafts lay overturned, nets torn to pieces, and drones scattered across the forest floor. Their leader, the man with the scar, banged his fist against the side of a damaged vehicle. "Get him," he shouted. "He won't escape. I don't care how big he is, we'll catch him." A group of poachers moved ahead, carrying heavier weapons. Reinforced energy harpoons, automated traps, and net launchers capable of ensnaring a creature larger than any truck. They did not notice Lena and Marco, who had climbed higher up a ridge to observe and plan. Lena crouched low, whispering instructions to Marco. "See the river ahead, we can use it. Kong can push the poachers toward it and we can block their escape routes. Follow my lead." Marco nodded, trembling. "This is insane. We're basically teaming up with a giant ape against armed humans." "Yes," Lena said quietly, "but sometimes the right choice is the hardest one." Kong advanced, his roar echoing through the jungle like rolling thunder. Trees snapped under his fists and boulders tumbled from cliffs as he moved. The poachers fired their tranquilizers, but they barely fazed him. His thick skin absorbed the shots, and his fury only grew. One poacher fired a harpoon at him. Kong caught the cable in his massive hand and yanked the man into the air. The others hesitated, stunned by the sheer power they were facing. Kong threw the poacher into a dense wall of trees, the man disappearing among the branches. Lena gasped, but she could see the poacher was alive. "We can't let him kill anyone," she murmured. "We have to guide him carefully." She motioned to Marco. "Now lead him toward the river." Kong paused for a moment, his keen eyes catching Lena's signal. With a deep growl, he turned, moving toward the river that cut through the jungle. The poachers followed, unaware they were being herded into a trap. Lena and Marco ran ahead, using fallen trees to block smaller paths and guiding Kong with shouts and gestures. The baby Kong clung tightly to the giant, squealing softly as the wind rushed past. The river was wide and fast. Lena knew that if the poachers reached the edge, their hovercrafts would be in danger. She pointed toward the cliffs along the riverbank, hoping Kong understood. He did. With a roar, he swung a massive tree trunk like a club, smashing the poachers' equipment into the mud. Nets tangled and tore apart, harpoons clattered uselessly to the ground, and drones crashed into the river. One poacher, desperately trying to escape in a small hovercraft, was pushed off balance as Kong reached the water's edge. The craft flipped, and the man splashed into the rapid current, struggling to stay afloat. Lena ran closer, waving her arms to signal Kong to stop. The giant understood. He turned his massive head, and the poacher managed to crawl to a shallow shore, soaked but alive. Kong roared one final time, shaking the ground, warning the others that their greed would not go unpunished. But the poachers were not done. Their leader had anticipated Kong's fury and had set a trap, a reinforced cage suspended on cables between two giant trees. They aimed to lure Kong into it, using the baby as bait. Kong's eyes narrowed as he approached the trap. He was not fooled. With a mighty leap, he avoided the cage and smashed it against a tree, Metal and cables twisted and snapped, and the poachers were thrown off balance. The jungle echoed with their angry shouts. "Stay back," Lena yelled. "He's smart, don't provoke him." Marco peeked from behind a tree. "We're lucky he's on our side. One wrong move and we're toast." The poachers regrouped, desperate now. They tried to surround Kong with more drones and energy weapons, but Lena and Marco had prepared. Using clever tricks, rolling logs, hidden spikes, and small explosive charges, they disrupted the poachers' formations without harming Kong. Kong advanced again, unstoppable. He grabbed a fallen tree, swinging it to block a poacher's line of fire, then threw it with incredible precision, knocking over vehicles and scattering their weapons. The poachers panicked, retreating toward the cliffs, realizing their technology was no match for nature's raw power. Through it all, Lena felt a strange connection with Kong. She had studied many animals, but she had never encountered one with such intelligence and awareness. He was not mindless. He was deliberate, protecting his family, teaching a lesson to those who sought to harm them. The jungle was a battlefield, but the humans and Kong moved like an unspoken team. Lena guided, Marco executed small tasks, and Kong smashed, roared, and protected. It was chaos, but it worked. Hours passed and the poachers were cornered near a deep canyon. Their escape routes were cut off by fallen trees, rocks, and rapid rivers. Kong stood at the edge, roaring, muscles tense, ready to end the battle. The poachers raised their weapons, desperation clear in their eyes. "You don't understand what you're dealing with," their leader shouted. "We can't be stopped." "You can be stopped," Lena shouted back, stepping forward. "Look around you. You've destroyed your own equipment, trapped yourselves, and now you face the consequences of your greed. Stop this now and maybe you live." The poachers laughed, but there was fear behind their bravado. Kong's growl rumbled through the canyon, shaking rocks loose. One misstep could send a vehicle tumbling down hundreds of feet. Kong made his move. He leapt forward, landing between the poachers and their last chance of escape. The ground shook, dust and debris rising into the air. The poachers fired at him, but he dodged with surprising speed. He smashed the remaining vehicles and weapons with ease, leaving the poachers disarmed and terrified. Lena ran to Kong's side, raising her hands to calm him. The giant's eyes met hers, and for a brief moment it was as if they understood each other completely. Kong backed off slightly, giving the poachers a final warning. "This is your last chance," Lena shouted. "Leave now. Never come back." The poachers hesitated, glancing at each other. Then, seeing Kong's fury and the devastation around them, they scrambled toward the remaining hovercrafts. Lena and Marco watched as the last of their equipment failed and the group fled, shouting threats they could never hope to keep. Kong's roar followed them, echoing across the cliffs, a final reminder that Skull Island was his kingdom, and it would remain free. The baby Kong squealed happily, wrapping itself around his arm. Kong lowered his massive head, gently nudging Lena and Marco in gratitude. "You did well," Lena whispered, her voice filled with awe. "We couldn't have done it without you." Kong tilted his head, almost as if he understood. Then he disappeared into the dense jungle, the baby clinging tightly to him, leaving Lena and Marco alone among the fallen trees and broken equipment. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the jungle. The battle was over, but Lena knew it was only the beginning. Poachers would return. Greedy humans would not forget what they had seen here. Skull Island was far from safe, but Lena felt hope. She had seen humanity's potential, the courage to act, the intelligence to plan, and the heart to protect. Kong had shown them the power of nature, but they had shown Kong that humans could be allies, not just threats. "Do you think they'll come back?" Marco asked, breaking the silence. "They might," Lena said, "but next time we'll be ready, and Kong will be ready. This island belongs to him and will help him keep it safe." For now, peace returned to Skull Island. Birds returned to the trees, monkeys leapt along the branches, and the baby Kong played happily under the watchful eye of its guardian. The jungle seemed to breathe again, alive and untamed, a kingdom free from human greed. But in the distance, the sound of engines echoed faintly, a reminder that danger was never far. Lena and Marco exchanged a glance. They had survived today, but the real test was still ahead. The fury of King Kong had been unleashed, and it had been terrifyingly beautiful. The poachers had learned the cost of greed, and the humans who truly respected nature had found a powerful ally in the island's guardian. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, Skull Island was safe. And that was enough. The sun had barely risen over Skull Island and the jungle already buzzed with life. Birds called to one another, monkeys swung through the branches, and the wind carried the scent of wet earth and salt. But beneath the calm, tension lingered. Lena Vale and Marco crouched in the underbrush, scanning the horizon. "They're coming back," Marco whispered, his voice tight with fear. "I saw the smoke last night, hovercrafts returning." Lena nodded, her expression grim. "I expected it. They won't give up. But this time we'll be ready. Kong won't fight alone, and neither will the island." Kong appeared from the jungle, carrying the baby Kong on his broad shoulder. His eyes were dark with focus, muscles coiled like springs. He had been watching over the island all night, patrolling and listening for the slightest sound of intruders. Lena stepped forward slowly, speaking softly. "We're here to help," she said. "We know their tricks now. You don't have to face them alone." Kong tilted his massive head, listening. Then he grunted, a deep rumble that felt like an agreement. The bond between the humans and the giant ape had grown stronger after the previous battle. He was powerful, intelligent, and furious, but now he had allies who understood him. The first sign of the poachers came in the distance, hovercrafts skimming over the ocean, glinting in the sunlight. Their numbers were larger this time. The harvesters were desperate, armed with even more advanced weapons, cages, and traps. They had returned, determined to capture Kong and sell the baby. Lena and Marco took position on a high ridge overlooking a narrow canyon. Below them, Kong crouched, muscles tensed, ready to strike. The humans had prepared traps of their own, fallen trees positioned to block paths, rocks placed to collapse onto vehicles, and ropes strung between trees to slow the hovercrafts. "Once they enter the canyon," Lena said, "Kong hits them from above and we control the rest." "We protect the baby and the jungle," Marco swallowed nervously. "It's insane, but it might work." The poachers advanced, confident. They fired warning shots trying to intimidate Kong, but he did not move blindly. His eyes scanned the terrain, noting every obstacle, every hiding place. He roared, a low, menacing sound that shook the ground, and advanced into the canyon with the humans following carefully. The first clash came quickly. Kong swung a massive fallen tree, knocking over a hovercraft and sending two poachers tumbling into a river. Lena triggered a small, controlled collapse, causing rocks to block a secondary path. Kong leapt across the canyon, smashing drones midair and scattering the poachers further. One of the poachers, a young man with trembling hands, aimed a harpoon at Kong. The giant's eyes locked onto him. With a single swipe of his enormous hand, he destroyed the weapon and sent the man flying into the mud. Lena winced but reminded herself. The poachers had come to harm. Kong was defending, not killing without reason. The battle intensified. Hovercrafts zoomed through the canyon, trying to encircle Kong. He swung boulders, smashed trees into vehicles, and used his tail to knock drones out of the sky. The baby Kong squealed, hiding safely behind him. Lena and Marco coordinated human tactics, rocks, ropes, and small explosive charges, strategically targeting the poachers' machines. It was chaos. The poachers' technology was advanced, but Kong's raw strength, intelligence, and instinct gave him the upper hand. Every move they made, Kong anticipated. Every path they tried to take, he blocked. And every human ally, Lena and Marco, helped him navigate the terrain safely. Hours passed, the sun climbing high above. Sweat ran down Lena's face, but she refused to stop. She had studied Kong long enough to know that the ape was not just a beast. He was intelligent, compassionate, and capable of understanding strategy. Together, they could end this. Kong paused for a moment, eyes fixed on the central poachers' camp. It was fortified with cages, energy nets, and weapons. He roared, shaking the ground. This was the heart of their operation. Lena nodded at Marco. "This is it. We guide him in. No one else gets hurt." With careful coordination, Lena and Marco led Kong to the edge of the camp. Poachers fired wildly, but Kong was too fast. He swung a massive tree trunk, smashing a cage and sending poachers flying. Drones crashed into the walls of the camp. Energy nets fizzled and broke under his strength. The leader of the poachers, the scar-faced man, fired a high-powered energy weapon directly at Kong. The beam struck Kong's shoulder, but he barely flinched. With a thunderous roar, Kong smashed the weapon into pieces, advancing relentlessly. The poachers scattered in panic, their fear growing. Lena and Marco worked quickly, freeing captured creatures from cages and helping them escape. Birds flew into the sky, monkeys leapt from branches, and even the smaller predators of the island returned to their homes. Kong protected them all, moving with precision and care. Finally, the battle reached its climax. Kong grabbed the scar-faced leader, lifting him high above the ground. The man begged, shaking with terror, but Kong's eyes were calm and unwavering. He understood this was not about killing for pleasure. It was about sending a message. The island and its creatures were not for sale. Lena stepped forward, her voice loud and clear. "Leave now, take your men and never return. This island belongs to Kong, and we will protect it." The poachers hesitated, seeing the devastation around them. Their hovercrafts were destroyed, drones lay scattered, and their weapons were gone. Kong's roar echoed like thunder across the cliffs, and the baby Kong squealed from safety. Reluctantly, the poachers fled, retreating toward the ocean. Kong watched them go, his chest heaving, muscles coiled. The jungle around him was scarred but alive. He had defended his home and his family. Lena and Marco approached carefully. "You did it," Lena whispered, looking up at Kong. "You protected the island. You protected them all." Kong lowered his massive head, letting the baby Kong slide from his shoulder to the ground. He gently nudged Lena and Marco with his hand, a gesture of gratitude. Then, with a final roar that shook the treetops, he disappeared into the jungle, leaving the humans among the trees. The aftermath was quiet. Birds returned, monkeys chattered happily, and the smaller predators of the island re-emerged from hiding. Lena and Marco looked around at the jungle they had helped protect. "We did it," Marco said, voice shaking. "We really did it." "Yes," Lena replied. "But this isn't just about us. It's about understanding. Humanity has a choice. We can exploit or we can protect. Today, we chose to protect." Kong and the baby moved through the dense forest, vigilant but peaceful. Lena realized that the bond between humans and nature could be powerful. When humans acted with intelligence, courage, and respect, they could achieve extraordinary things, even survive alongside creatures as formidable as King Kong. Days passed, and the jungle healed. Lena and Marco studied the creatures, documenting their behavior, all while ensuring the poachers could not return. They sent reports to galactic authorities, who promised to monitor Skull Island and prevent further exploitation. Kong watched from the shadows, always present but unseen. He allowed the humans to study, to understand, but never interfered with the natural order of the island. He was the guardian, and now humanity had proven it could be a friend, not just a threat. One evening, Lena stood on a cliff overlooking the ocean. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in red and gold. The jungle was quiet, peaceful. She thought of Kong, the fury he had unleashed, and the lessons he had taught them. "We underestimated nature," she said softly, "but we can learn and we can protect." Marco joined her, looking out at the island. Do you think he'll ever forgive us completely? He already has, Lena replied. He knows we fought for the same thing, and that's all that matters. The roar of King Kong echoed in the distance, powerful and free. It was a roar of victory, of protection, and of freedom. The poachers were gone, the island was safe, and humanity had proven it could rise to the challenge, not by destroying but by respecting and acting courageously. For Skull Island, this was a new beginning. Kong would remain its king, the guardian of all its creatures. But now, humans like Lena and Marco were allies, ready to defend the island when danger returned. And the galaxy, which had once seen Skull Island as nothing more than a source of profit, would learn that some forces of nature were beyond control, and that humans could be heroes when they chose to act wisely and bravely. The fury of King Kong had been terrifying, unstoppable, and magnificent, but humanity had risen to the occasion, showing courage, intelligence, and heart. Together they had preserved a kingdom of life, proving that sometimes the greatest victories are won when humans fight for what is right, and not for profit. As the stars appeared above Skull Island, Kong and his baby watched from the highest cliff, silhouettes against the night sky. The jungle was alive, free, and untamed. And in that freedom there was hope for the creatures, for the humans, and for the future of Skull Island. The poachers would not return. Humanity and Kong had ensured it, and that was enough.